Well, it's a long story, but I have to kind of pinpoint aside from growing up in a household where social change and social justice were very just kind of part of the deal, and that was part of what was important to my parents. And so I always grew up with that, and always grew up with, various things in the house. I remember the first thing I can remember was that there was a labor problem with, grape pickers in California. And Cesar Chavez, one of the great labor leaders, was at a huge protest around North America to encourage people to not buy grapes from California, you know. And I was probably like 8 or something. But so I just remember that vividly. My mother was not going to buy any of those grapes, from California because of the way the grape growers were treated there. So I had that, kind of sensibility, I suppose. But then, strangely enough, I had also been involved in music a lot, and as a musician, but then ended up for a while working at the Toronto Symphony. And I went to a conference in the late 1980s in Chicago that was for all these different symphony orchestra folks. And the keynote speaker at the conference was Ben Cohen from Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream. He started talking about how businesses could have a social purpose. And then he passed out these ice cream bars called Peace Pops. They had this campaign called 1% for Peace, and some amount of what you paid for it went to this campaign. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of anything. Aside from stuff my parents were involved in, that was the first kind of business campaign or commitment to social change that I had heard of. And I just remember, I didn't know anything really more than that, but it was like just something went off. And I remember thinking that's what I would like to do. Like somehow I would like to work with businesses and to help them make social change, even though that, there was nobody doing that. I barely knew what it meant. And, I was like nowhere. But I was just really taken with it. It was like a big idea. That was really the thing that I think, when I really think about it, it was one of the most important things, inspirations for me, seeing that.